Dave Chappelle did an interview with NPR, and the interview went viral. People were discussing some of the things he said in regards to trans folks, politics, his views on comedy, the Saudi festival, and I kind of wanted to do a breakdown. But before we discuss any of these, I think this conversation, especially when it relates to comedians and their quote-unquote perceived power, I think it always runs the same roadblock. And so I thought it'd be great to just hear from Dave about what he says in this interview in regards to the idea that jokes are just jokes and comedians don't take them seriously. And so I'm not going to say anything.
One of the things that you said,
there's so many things that are happening in politics and whatever that are unprecedented. And you have to explain to a person, well, this is why this is unusual. This contextualization is what comedians do. We're like a nation's kidney. We help everyone metabolize not just facts, but feelings around facts or ideas, things I say on stage. But there's a lot of big ideas that people have feelings about, and there's no real context to conversate or rebut them. I'm not the biggest comedian, but my voice is sought after. The first time I can remember doing a big show in the Middle East, they gave me a list of all the things I wasn't supposed to address. So I took the list on stage, and that was the show. I just did the list. Don't talk about the royal family. Is that y'all? And I just made fun of them. Man, they were screaming. I'm backstage at a meet and greet, and there was all these young comedians from all over the Middle East. They were looking at me like I wouldn't even know that they'd know who I am. They couldn't believe I was there. They kept saying, "You just say that? You just say that stuff?" Yeah, I mean, yeah. But I never forgot that. I'm doing a show. There's a police officer killed a black person, and the black community asked me to cancel the show. We don't want artists to come. We want to boycott. Well,
was that in Ohio? Was that in Cincinnati?
Yeah, it was exactly
was
what
in Cincinnati,
it was.
yeah.
And I respected their wishes, but it's like, or we could have got together and talked about it, you know. And I like doing that, but I do that often. I was in Paris when they killed Alex Pretty, and man, I booked the show in Minneapolis right after they killed that guy. Like, man, they're gonna need talk about this. But you can console certain communities with your presence, or just acknowledging that you see them and that you heard with them.
Does that sound like just jokes when you're talking about, I'm giving voice to these people, I'm helping console them, I'm helping them digest difficult ideas? You might believe jokes are just jokes. I don't believe comics believe that, vast majority of them, and I don't think Dave thinks that.
If you go to a comedy club somewhere in America, your feelings and thoughts are represented.
Because it's important, because every opinion that you could think of is championed in a room. I don't silence your champions. I'm not your champion, and I am someone else's. You can't silence the team that you don't like, but you do have the opportunity to go on after them, say your piece. Man, this has happened to me so many times in my career where a guy will say something, I'm like, oh, and I feel a way about it. Yeah, I don't think that they should be silenced, but I can't wait to put me up next.
So if it's just jokes, why does he feel some type of way? I'm having people share a lot of Chappelle content with me. And when you pay attention to what they're sharing it for, the reasons are pretty clear. This was shot, 10 years ago? 17 years ago. Yeah. How old is 15 really? Okay? If I scroll down 17 years ago, okay, I'm going to just try to zoom in a little bit here. His ability to include real-life situations to educate his audience while being funny is just amazing to me. Dave Chappelle is an absolute master at discussing serious matters while disguising them as jokes. This is what separates him from so many of the run-of-the-mill comics. He weaved in half a dozen news stories and used them all to make a real point about how society has double standards, commented on strange priorities, news media. They inform people's views. Dave knows that. That's how he explains it in the interview. But even in the way people interacted with a lot of his content, not all, but a lot of it was about the social commentary. A joke can be used for different things. It can be used to help, heal, console, make people feel included, and it can also be used for evil. Some of the most charismatic people who've done horrendous evils all over the world use humor, satire, different kinds of imagery that are funny to get their political messages across. Humor's powerful. People pretending like it's neutral are deluding themselves. Donald Trump, in his rise to power, one of the big things that people said that they loved about him was how funny he was. And if he wasn't funny, I'll be honest with you, there's no chance he becomes president. Half the people I know who share Donald Trump content don't share it for its political points. Nope. They share it because it's fucking funny and base. And I want to play a clip for you guys.
There was an episode described, and it was never elucidated, that somebody on the crew laughed at a sketch you did, and you thought the laughter was on the wrong side of the humor. Do you recall what that was?
But this is exactly what he said on Oprah or some other show 15 years ago. I never forgot this because it really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah, I remember. It just raised an interesting question to me, which I was already wrestling with in the first place. At that time, especially in my career, I always had the feeling could end any minute, so I err on the side of excess. And there's instances where you go too far. You're playing with powerful shit, doing jokes about racism and this ism and that ism. And to me, I looked at it as an occupational hazard, but I also realized like that I was bigger than I was comfortable with. I didn't trust the circumstances of the being that big or whatever.
What the person was laughing at that you felt, you diagnosed as being, oh, this is wrong.
Yeah, but more vividly, I just remember the feeling, the way it made me feel.
Oh, that you don't want to talk about?
I mean, it was so bad, I fucking quit the show.
I'm going to just pause it there. What did you hear? Well, not only that, he said I was playing with powerful things, whether it be a racism,
my dick,
all this other stuff, right? So when he's saying I'm playing with these powerful topics and I didn't like the way somebody laughed, it meant that he was covering things that he knew were difficult.
Yeah.
And the audience that was enjoying it the most on set bothered him so deeply, it was one of the reasons he left the show and walked away from $50 million. I almost said 50 million penises. That's crazy.
That's because I said my dick.
Yeah. Pause. That's crazy. I want you to transpose that decision, and I think it helps to elucidate why some people look at him now. And people have been raising the issue like, who's laughing at these jokes the most? Now, I'm not saying everybody laughing is bad, but it's just that you had an issue with it then. Do you have an issue with it now? And it sounds like he doesn't.
Watching the news is like taking a civics class. You know, I got all that flack for doing that festival in Saudi Arabia, but in Saudi, you know, I don't think that festival would have been legitimate if I wasn't there.
That they believe that the Saudis killed Jamal Khashoggi in the embassy in Turkey. You knew that when you went, right?
Oh, absolutely. Now, I should tell you.
You had no qualms?
I won't say that. They asked me to go years before that, and I said no for that very reason. Since that time, the United States government does business with the Saudis. Netflix does business with the Saudis. Everyone, the Saudis finance tons of movies. All these, I know, I see them financing boxing matches and all these things. And none of these things were an issue until I went there. And why is that? As soon as a black man can make money off the plantation, they're trying to tell you that the money is dirty. Well, okay, I'll go home and spend the money with actual slave owners on it.
I think nobody got more shit for doing the Saudi festival than Bill Burr. All the comics who went got a lot of negative press. So him saying it's about being black,
You know, if you want to be that pure about money, then stop driving your car, stop eating, don't use your cell phone. Everything is tethered to something that's just terrible. And I can make a million excuses or reasons to deprive that crowd of that show. But man, when I was standing in front of them, I feel like I did the right thing. Our governments are going to ruin everything for us. We'll never get to know each other if we just do everything that they want to do or function on the terms that they want us to function.
And I kind of understand what he's trying to say there. Tom changed a couple of things. And a similar situation happened to me, as a matter of fact, right? Where I refused to go to the Dominican Republic, because of their treatment of Haitians over there. And one day I had a wedding, and I went there. And when I came back, some people was like, yeah, what's up, how you doing? Not much. I came back from the DR. I had a wedding there, so I went there. You went to the DR? I'm like, yeah, I went to the DR. Ew, how could you? You know how they treat Haitians? And I'm like, yeah, but you go to France every summer. They stole money from us. They never gave it back. We have to pay them for our liberty. And you go to the States. The States in 1914 went in Haiti, and then they stole all the gold that we had, and then they come back. And then later on with the Clinton, they fucked us up. So it's like, for something it's okay, for some other things it's not. Where do we draw the line? I can understand where he's coming from. We're still paying them as a country, as Haiti. We're still paying them, and they are depleting our resources, right? But you're still going to chill there and enjoy the wine that you're dining. If you're not going there, whenever you go to the liquor store, I got some great wine or champagne. You love champagne. I know you love champagne. Where is champagne from? From France, the ones that are depleting that. So you're consuming the product. You always want to go to the States. They're one of the reasons why the country is in the state that it is now. But yet, you go to New York, you go to Boston, You go to Atlanta, you go to Miami, you chill there. As a Haitian, it's also weird. So now what do we do? Some people are still going to watch certain boxing matches. Some people are still going to watch certain MMA fights over there that's going on in the Riyadh. They're not going to say anything. They're going to assume that. So, yeah, I'm like, where is the line actually?
Yeah, I mean, the line's where you need to put it. I don't know what other people decide to do and what's acceptable for them has to determine your own moral line.
I'm talking about where do we draw the line because they are judging me upon my actions. They're asking questions and they're the one that are scolding me and stuff like that. So I'm asking that to them. Okay, so where do we draw the line? What's in your feet right now? Isn't that Nike? Yeah, Nike. They're not the best in terms of, child labor and stuff. You got an iPhone. We could play this game. Watch out when you point your finger at me, man. Threes are pointing back at you.
I think I disagree mostly because Davis had the stance before that he felt it was unacceptable. That was his own line. He abandoned that line, and then he justified it by saying other people do it. So I'm like, oh, well, you had a moral standard. You thought it was repugnant. Nothing changed. And so you decided not to go, which is cool. Then you change that. Why? Because America does business with them. Because they do this with them. Okay, well, then what happened to the moral value that you held independent of them? Because America been doing business with them since a long time. Mm-hmm. So what changed for you specifically? I think that would be the question. And I also think Dave made a lot of decisions independently of whatever industry he's in. Why? Because he was standing up for values or morals that he thought mattered. When Dave walked away from Comedy Central, the mainstream media called him crazy, but the people loved him for it because he took a stance that irrespective of other people taking the money or whatever it is, he decided to say no for an ideal that he held dear to himself. Respect. People who are OG fans of Dave and love Dave, remember that. So now they see him taking the money and, basically doing a government-funded event, and they feel a bit differently about it. I think that's a fair criticism. I think it's not enough to say, well, sneakers are built from this, like that's fine. But you have to understand we're holding you to the own standard that you set for yourself. That's all it is. You said no to the money because you didn't like how somebody was laughing on set.
Right.
Fair.
Right.
Big move. Mm-hmm. Now you got a government that's doing a whole genocide of the Yemeni people. Mm-hmm. All right. Khashoggi. In fact, it was so repugnant to him, he said no to going. Now you change your mind. I think it's fair that people say, what happened to the values? Because people don't just subscribe to comics or these people for their jokes.
Right.
They also have a set of values that they're intertwined with.
Mm-hmm. Where is this clean money you're talking?
But you said you hesitated for years to go, the years you didn't go. So what made the difference for you?
Time and circumstance, time and the wheels of commerce kept turning.
And I think it's interesting, too, because one of the reasons he said that he's okay with doing the show, what did he say? They're doing golf tournaments. They're doing NASCAR. So it turns out that their whitewashing of their reputation by laundering all these organizations works because it got Dave Chappelle to change his mind and then do the show. So that's why they're investing. When people ask why is the Saudi government doing this where they're putting so much money into golf and this? It's for this. It's so that they can have all this soft power and apply pressure culturally, financially to all these different things. In a way, he's helping to prop up their media strategy to help their PR.
The thing that happened is that, it's going to be a weird thing that I'm going to say.
Go for it.
But sometimes you can have certain values and a certain stance, right? And that's on what you see right here. And because of the angle that you choose, you can still have the same morals and the same stance on the subject that you're watching, but then the angle that changed made you see something else, that it was not what it was. And you're like, okay, yeah, it's not what I thought it was. Saudi, it's not a great place. Your angle changing like that. I live in a place where it's pretty much garbage. The way that they're treating our own citizen are not necessarily the great as well. So, fuck it.
I think you're making some false equivalencies.
Explain.
The Canadian government's not comparable to the Saudi government.
I was talking about the States, like you being in the States.
And sure, and if he ran to go do a Trump-sponsored comedy show, I'm pretty sure people would have issues with it.
Sure.
Yeah, he went and said, I want to do a comedy show for Israel. Make sure the IDF troops can get a laugh.
Yeah, people are going to have an issue.
Are we not allowed to criticize that either? I said, if you want to go to Saudi Arabia and do a comedy show run by the people, go ahead. I think it's just different when you do things on behalf of the state.
Hey, man, I got to say, shout out to you because usually you're the one playing devil's advocate, and now I just tried, and I am tired.
Articulates the rawness when the rest of the world is buttoned up. But what about when the rest of the world isn't buttoned up? And I just wonder if that changes things for you. You know what I'm saying?
And he's a bad example because he has a dismissive shorthand about people. Like a comedian who's up there talking, it's a way different type of interface than say being president of the United States because.
Oh, it's a totally different job. I credit that, but I'm saying.
No, I'm talking about not just the job, the actual interface, how we actually are communicating to people.
Well, say more.
Well, the presidency is the presidency. Like if you vote for the person or not, that's your president. This is an authority figure. This is the top law enforcement leader. He's the top, he's the executor of all of America's affairs. And I just have to move my crowd. You can opt out of my crowd, but you shouldn't have to leave America because the president's making the block too hot for you.
So he talks about like Trump's influence and why he's not okay with what he does because of his influence specifically. And I can understand that. I don't think a comedian is the equivalent of the president of the United States, though people have lower standards for the president than anybody else on this planet. But, MAGA's for retards, so what do you want me to do with that?
Facts. What standards? No standards.
It's how we actually are communicating to people.
Well, say more.
Well, the presidency is the presidency. If you vote for the person or not, that's your president. This is an authority figure. This is the top law enforcement leader. He's the top, he's the executor of all of America's affairs. And I just have to move my crowd. You can opt out of my crowd, but you shouldn't have to leave America because the president's making the block too hot for you.
Okay, so just right there, I want y'all to contrast that with what he said on that interview with David Letterman, and just think. You can just opt out. Well, people could have just opted out of the Chappelle Show. People could have opted out a lot of things, but you still felt the need to take a stand, right? You felt a sense of responsibility because you were tackling these topics that were very difficult. And then at other times, you'll be like, you can opt out of my comedy show, sure, but you also recognize how influential you are. I just think sometimes I understand the point. You're not the president. I don't think people are really trying to equate you to that. But to your own standard.
So and I did resent that the Republican Party ran on transgender jokes. I felt like they were doing a weaponized version of what I was doing. I didn't. It's not what I was doing. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
This is before I learned the phrase "I respectfully decline," and I was on Capitol Hill. And everybody ran up to take pictures with me from every congressional office. And I just take pictures with whoever I asked. I didn't ask how they voted, what their voting record is. And everyone, at first, was like CDC people. And then here comes Lauren Boebert. And she said, can I get a picture? And I'd already taken 40 pictures. I didn't want to say no in front of everybody. But I didn't know the phrase, I respectfully decline. So I just took the picture. And then she posted a picture before I could even get from there to the show and said something to the effect of just two people that knew that it's just two genders. She instantly weaponized it or politicized it.
Did he care then who was laughing loudest? Right? What do you say? He said, I resent the fact that the Republican Party ran on transgender jokes, which, whose jokes do you think they were sharing the most? Who is the poster child for jokes on trans people? That's why Lauren Boebert took that picture with you. That's why that picture probably was very popular for her. Just two people who know, yeah, I'm not surprised.
And what do you say to people who feel that in some occasions you're punching down?
I'm not sick of it. I don't want to be dismissive to that sentiment, but I don't know. That's a tough one for me because so much of that was a media phenomenon. What was happening in actual life versus how the media was reporting on my show. And I feel like the way they reported on that show was rage baiting.
Do you feel like your jokes are misrepresented, or you think they're misrepresented for a purpose, which is to?
It's almost some reporting was as if they almost reported on it as if I was doing something other than a comedy show.
I will agree with Dave that there was some unfair criticism levied towards him, and some people were wilding out. But him saying, they're almost pretending like it wasn't a comedy show. It's always this thing with comics where they go to downplaying themselves when it's convenient, and then in another breath, they'll say, me going to Saudi Arabia was so powerful for a lot of these people. They never heard someone being so outspoken. I needed to go to Minneapolis. Why? So we could talk, right? Because there are people in mourning, and it really mattered to me to be there for the community. We are the kidney of America. We help people digest difficult ideas. And then afterwards, they're just pretending like what I did wasn't a comedy show. They always do this thing. It's on one hand, everyone did this. Before the whole Trump backfire happened, all the comics were talking about how they're the new media, how they're the ones changing the landscape, they're getting the big interviews, and we're all like, great, you guys are very influential. And then after the whole thing backfired, we're just comics. We're just stupid guys telling jokes. It just feels so bitch-made to me sometimes, the way they interact with this concept. How do you guys hear those two conflicting things and rationalize it?
I feel that we are the new media. I feel like as a comedian, we are. I feel like I am. Not because I want to be in that position. It's not because I have the arrogance of saying like I'm the new media. You should listen to me. But people put me in that place because the media is doing a shitty job. I don't want that spot. I don't want to do that. I'm not putting myself there saying like, yo, relax, okay? I'm not reporting the news. I'm telling a story which is slightly distorted for funny purposes. But I feel like the way that people are treating comedians, sometimes they really treat it like it's the new media, but not because I put myself in that position. But
How did you not put yourself in the position?
What do you mean?
I mean, you're literally hitting record and talking on a mic and then doing news stories. Like doing different stories. So
Yes, 100%. But there's a level. I'm not bound by a certain professionalism rules or stuff like that. It's my morals. My morals are guiding how I'm going to be about a certain story, you know, whereas a journalist, they have certain rules to go by, which they sometimes don't, or they omit to do, or they bend the freaking rules. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I feel like they have a duty. When you're a journalist, you have a duty. This is interesting. Let me talk about that. That's where I don't put myself there. Yes, I kind of do the same thing because it's commentary, which is the difference. That's the difference. I comment on stuff, but I'm not journaling on stuff trying to be neutral, which what journalism is supposed to be neutral, where I'm just doing my comments and what I think about that.
I don't understand how you're not choosing to be new media. You haven't explained that. You understand there's a difference
new
between
media. What I mean by that is that people. What I feel when people say, "Oh, we're the new media," is that we're replacing journalism. And when we go up on stage to tell jokes, they take that shit as facts. And it's like, hey, it's entertainment. There is commentary. There is something that is political and charged, but I should not be replacing the media. Do you understand what I'm saying? Or do I need to?
Yeah, but you're also occupying watch time. You're occupying people's ears. You're feeding them the information. Mm-hmm. Whether you think you're choosing to occupy new media, the very nature of taking the action to report on these stories, you are the way that a lot of people get informed on stories.
Yes, but I want to remind them that it is commentary and not a
commentary. Even if you say it's commentary, first off, newspapers have commentary. Sure. Media news stations have commentary. In fact, there's whole sections where it's just like what editorials or whatever they're called.
Yeah,
that's what we do essentially, and we mingle facts and aspects of stories into it. Almost everyone I know who does the commentary space will cover a news story and literally read off a news report the same way other news agencies will read off of other news agencies' reports. So in a way, people are opting into this space consciously, informing the public, which is why the public returns, doing it so with a made of social personality. But it is the new way. How many times have people told me, like, I got informed from this social media page. I got informed from this page. In fact, you probably get most of your news from a different social media page. These are all people choosing to be the new media, quote unquote. I agree. I'm not saying you guys are necessarily journalists, but you do take on some of their roles. You fact check, you double check on certain things, you look for sources, right?
Well, that's just credibility. People are not going to go watch me if I just fuck up or I just straight up lie.
Given the platform that you now have and the fact that people seek you out.
Last question.
Does that change your sense of responsibility for the work?
No.
No.
No. Mm-hmm. For my work, no. I mean, listen, I could personally say I don't want to. That's a tough question. There is a thing that happens when an artist gets bigger, that the platform gets bigger, that there's an expectation that you behave a certain way. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the box that I fell for in Chappelle's show. Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't fall for it, but I was overwhelmed by that idea of like, it's a lot of responsibility. But I've come to the understanding that you got to be true to your work. That's the job. Mm-hmm. And if that makes you big, so be it. But then you don't. But then what happens is you get big and then you start being true to being big. Mm-hmm. And that's a mistake. Stay true to your work. Say what you have to say. If being big informs me in such a way that I feel like I don't want to step on any ants or any blades of grass, I don't want to hurt anybody, then so be it. That's what I decide. But I have yet to make those types of decisions. I don't feel like anything I do is malicious or even harmful. And I think if I did hurt somebody with my work, boy, they would have been laid that at my feet. Mm-hmm. I'm just not doing that.
So I like that portion there because he says you start being true to being big and stop being true to your work. I think I understand what he's talking about. I think that relates to what I was just talking about before in regards to, do you want to be an artist and do you want to focus on that, or do you want to focus on how big you've gotten in terms of the platform, the reach, and how much influence you have? And a lot of people who get to that stage get a lot of pressure on them. You have so much influence, wield it for this cause, wield it for that cause, all these different things. I think if Dave had been this person he is now coming into it, I don't think there would have been much issue. I think people view Dave as a person who cared about how big he was. Pause. That's crazy.
Yes.
So when he walked away from the 50 million, people cared because he cared about how much influence he had. And now, and he still talks like he cares. He talks like, I'm going to Minneapolis because something happened. I care about my influence and how I can console people just to show up for them. Again, this feels like that flip-flop thing at times.
The platform that you now have and the fact that people seek you out, does that change your sense of responsibility for the work?
No.
No.
No. For my work, no. I mean, listen, I could personally say I don't want to. That's a tough question.
See, that's what I like right there.
At least he thought about it.
You know, because I know some people would have been just being like, no, I'm just here to tell jokes. You can see the conflicting aspect. And look, this is not like some hatred of Dave Chappelle. I'm a big fan. I love what he does, okay? And I actually think throughout this interview, watching Dave, I thought there was a lot of human aspects to him. There was a struggle that he was having with his own thoughts with some of these issues. And, you know, people just labeling him a flat-out sellout. I think you can strongly disagree. If you want to call him a sellout, that's your choice. Me, personally, I think it's interesting to watch somebody at that level of fame have to deal with some of these problems and make the choice that I disagree with. But he didn't strike me as malicious. He didn't strike me as somebody who's just like dashing it away. That's not my interpretation. But I will say, I think a lot of the criticism towards him are valid. That's my interpretation so far. Yeah, what do you want to say?
I mean, I was about to ask you what does that mean for Dave, and what does that mean? What are you trying to highlight? I think that you're right about the fact that, you know, people have the right to question, and it's going to be that. I think it's extra difficult to be in that position because, oh man, being put on a pedestal, people have so high expectations of you and something necessarily that you didn't necessarily ask for. I just want to do comedy. Yeah, no, you can't. There's power behind what you're saying. Yeah, there's so many people following you that are watching what you're saying, so you can't just do comedy like you're an open micer. You're not.